Welcome to Theater Talk. I'm Ann McBride. Co-host Ed Shopes and I are here the first and third Fridays of the month to tell you all about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Anne, and welcome, fellow theater lovers. Joining us first on this episode of KMUZ Theater Talk, we'll hear Anne's interview with Stephanie Schwartz, Tessa Ross, and Henry Moat from Albany Civic Theater to talk about Peter and the Starcatcher that opens December 1st and plays through December 16th.
Rounding out today's program is our conversation with Jessica Peterson, Stephen Munshaw, and Ryan Carty from Enlightened Theatrics to talk about their production of James and the Giant Peach that will open December 8th and go through the 17th.
But first, let's check our KMUZ Theater Talk calendar and see what else is on the boards. Anne?
Albany Civic Theater at albanycivic.org. Coming up at Albany Civic Theater is The Wonderful Tale of Peter and the Starcatcher. It plays December 1st through the 16th. They'll join us later to talk about it.
Brush Creek Playhouse at brushcreekplayhouse.com is closing their 2023 season December 1st through 17th with Ebenezer, A Christmas Carol. It's an original adaptation of the Charles Dickens classic written by Emily and Michael Wood and is directed by Norm Gouveia.
The Elsinore Theater at elsinoretheater.com. For information about local events and touring shows at the Elsinore, go to elsinoretheater.com or their Facebook page.
Enlightened Theatrics is at enlightenedtheatrics.org. And on today's show, we'll hear all about Enlightened Theatrics show James and the Giant Peach. And it runs December 10th through 17th at the Grand Theater in downtown Salem. It's directed by Stephen Munshaw with vocal director Kent Wilson and choreographer Christopher Dean. Go to enlightenedtheatrics.org or Enlightened's Facebook page for more info.
Gallery Theater at gallerytheater.org. Anne of Green Gables opens November 24th and runs through December 17th at Gallery Theater. And then The Most Massive Woman Wins, directed by Mary Smalley Acuff. That's going to be January 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Kaiser Homegrown Theater is at kaiserhomegrowntheater.org. And in celebration of Native American Heritage Month, Kaiser Homegrown will present Native Stories November 17th through 19th, told by Ed Edmo of the Shoshone Bannock tribe. This is going to be a great special presentation. Get your tickets at kaiserhomegrowntheater.org now. And Boeing will open Kaiser Homegrown Theater's 2024 season February 9th. This farce is all about an American living in Paris who is engaged to 3 different flight attendants on different airlines. Bernard has their schedule set so only one is with him at a time until it all goes wrong.
The Majestic Theater is on Facebook and at majestic.org. Kander and Ebb's hit musical Cabaret closes November 19th at the Majestic Theater in downtown Corvallis. Tickets are at majestic.org.
Pinnacle Theater is at pinnacletheater.org. And the crazy comic mayhem of The Play That Goes Wrong opens tonight, November 17th, and runs through December 9th. You can hear the inside scoop about the show from director Susan Shopes and cast members Ken Hermans and Shay Hazy on our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast. And on Saturday, November 18th, Pinnacle Theater is hosting a audition workshop for singers at 1 p.m. Go to the pinnacletheater.org website to register. Auditions for The Prom are December 9th at Pinnacle Theater. Robert Sahlberg is the director. And once again, the Pinnacle Theater website has more information on that. And the first show of Pinnacle Theater's 2024 season comes up January 12th through February 1st. It's Brighton Beach Memoirs by Neil Simon, directed by Joe Dodge. And don't forget that Joe Dodge's acting workshop for actors 18 and older is happening at Pinnacle Theater's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. To sign up, go to tickets.pinnacletheater.org.
The Salem Playhouse at thesalemplayhouse.com offers acting classes for both kids and adults at Kaiser Homegrown Theater and adult classes at Chemeketa Community College. To sign up, go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the classes tab.
Spotlight Community Theater is at spotlightcommunity.org. And Spotlight is presenting Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, an adaptation by Michael Vaca, directed by Sharon Rempel, and that runs February 8th through the 18th.
Theater 33 at Willamette University at theater33.org. They are doing theater shorts, an enchanting evening featuring a collection of short plays by Pacific Northwest playwrights is December 8th through 15th at 7 p.m. and December 9th and 10th at 2 p.m.
Corban University is at corban.edu/theater-arts. And You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown ends its run November 19th at Corban University. It's directed by Tamara McGinnis. See their Facebook page and website for show and ticket information. And check out our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast for our interview with Tamara about the show.
Western Oregon University at wou.edu/theater. Western's academic season's first show is one of Shakespeare's best, Much Ado About Nothing, and it's on stage now through November 18th. Our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast features an interview with director Jeb Burris and two of the actors from the production. And Spring Awakening runs February 29th through March 9th at Western. It's directed by Michael Phillips.
Willamette University is at wutheater.com. Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind, 30 plays in 60 minutes by Greg Allen is going to be at Willamette University Theater February 15th through the 25th, and is directed by Jonathan Cole.
McKay High School, and they're on Facebook at McKay Thespians, have their final performance of Romeo and Juliet on November 18th.
McNary High School is on Facebook at Ken Collins Theater. The pop musical Mamma Mia will be on stage in the Ken Collins Theater January 25th through 27th and February 1st through 3rd.
North Salem High School, and it's on Facebook at NSHS Theater. North's holiday show, December 1st through 3rd, is called Junie B. in Jingle Bells, Batman Smells. This hilarious story is based on the best-selling book series by Barbara Park.
South Salem High School is on Facebook at Saxon Drama, and The Sound of Music opens in the Rose Theater November 30th and plays through December 3rd. Directed by drama teacher Juliana Gibbons.
Sprague High School is doing Midsummer/Jersey by Ken Ludwig. It's the hilarious high-octane retelling of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream set in a seaside boardwalk in modern-day New Jersey. It plays through November 18th at Sprague.
Staten High School is on Facebook at Staten High School Theater, and their show, the mystery comedy Clue, closes November 19th.
That wraps up this week's Theater Talk calendar.
Coming up next is director Stephanie Schwartz and actors Tessa Ross and Henry Mott from Albany Civic Theater to talk about Peter and the Starcatcher, opening December 1st and playing through the 16th. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We're talking with Stephanie Schwartz, assistant director and musical conductor of Peter and the Starcatcher, opening at Albany Civic Theater December 1st through the 16th. And she has some cast members with her. Welcome to Theater Talk, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I've been reading about this play. This is a very complex play. You know, the boat and the... How are you doing that, Stephanie? How is that being visualized?
Well, actually, we built a raked stage for our set, and so when you look at it, you're going to be looking kind of at the prow of the ship.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks very cool.
And how much of a rake is it?
It's not too much because we still have a lot of people that are doing a lot of movement and like fighting and
Yes.
stuff like that. So, nothing real scary or anything, but it slopes all the way up. So you have an upstage and a downstage, and at the top, you're gonna have two musicians.
Wow, that sounds great. Well, okay, so what for the people who haven't read the synopsis, could you could you perhaps describe the show?
All right, so it's a precursor a little bit to Peter Pan. Basically, the author that wrote the book was asked a lot of questions by his children about Peter Pan after he read Peter Pan to them. And they had questions like, well, where did the mermaids come from? And why are there pirates? And why is there just these guys? Where did it all happen? And so he wrote a story that is kind of like explaining all of those questions to his kids, like where they could possibly all have come from. And so that's where you get Peter and the Starcatcher.
Oh, wow. Now, it's not a musical, but there is music.
It is not a musical because we don't stop and sing to kind of bring the plot along. There's only about two songs that really get sung by everybody. So it has music, right?
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
just not your typical, let's stop and sing a song about this part, and let's stop and sing a song about this part. But it has a lot of music in it because it has a drummer and a pianist in the back providing all of the sounds.
Well, let's talk to the actors a little bit. Tessa, could you describe your part?
I'm one of the original Lost Boys, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
Um, so my character's name is Prentice, and he's just this annoying little teenage boy who really just thinks he's hot stuff and he's just the coolest thing ever. And he is eventually becomes really good friends and really close with Peter Pan, and they have like this, almost familial bond because of the, Lost Boys thing. But in the beginning, they're not the Lost Boys yet. They're just frenemies, I guess you would say.
Orphans.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, where do you come in? Which ship are you on?
All of the Lost Boys. So it's Prentice, Peter Pan, and one other Ted. And we're being sold into slavery, I guess.
Wow.
And we end up on the Neverland. So,
Okay,
the origins of the Neverland.
I see. I see. And Henry, you're the bad guy.
I'm the bad guy. Yeah.
You have a voice for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. This has really been the perfect role for it. I play he's called Black Stash in place of Blackbeard and in place of Captain Hook because he, begins the show with both hands. And yeah, he's just amazing, like Captain Hook is, because he's both a sinister mastermind and a completely insecure buffoon. And getting to juggle that is, just really, really fun.
And how is the staging of the removal of the hand?
Oh, I can't give that away, but it is it is delightful, and it is. If you don't know what it is, you will not see it coming.
Oh, wow. Oh, there's something to look forward to.
Precisely.
So I understand why you picked this project to be in and to direct and assistant direct and musicals. But how did it happen that Albany Civic Theater did this particular production? What made them pick this one?
Well, basically, I think it has been Miranda's kind of dream show to direct.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking, this is back in 2019, I believe. We were both talking, and I was telling her about how this is my dream show to direct. Like, we both knew about this show, and we both were like, if I could direct a show, it would be Peter and the Starcatcher.
Wow.
And so it was slated before the pandemic, but then the
Yeah.
pandemic hit. And so we had to wait. And then she waited and she waited, and now here we are.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Because it's something for everyone, because adults and kids can go, right?
Yeah, very much so, because it's not necessarily like a family show, right? Like, it's not geared towards kids, but it's also not just adults. It's kind of bridges that gap between your, I don't know, I guess your own inner child of your own asking of like, well, where the heck did Peter Pan come from?
Yeah, sure.
I think the cast is really exceptionally exciting, I guess you could say. We have some very good comedic actors. And so this play, the reason I like it is because it's very farcical, right? Like, it has comedy all through it. And I think our actors are portraying that really well. So it's a
What-
hoot and a half.
Well, now, Henry,
Mhm.
you're a bad guy, but you're a funny bad guy.
Oh, sure.
Is would you be best described as a funny bad guy?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like every other line of mine is a punchline, and that's great. Wouldn't have it any other way.
You talked about the fighting. What does that entail?
The fighting, it's just there's a lot of fun. It's very chaotic. And so because like everybody's kind of fighting everybody all at the same time. And I think it'll be really fun for the audience to watch, because you're like, oh, watch this person fighting this person, and then, oh, look, there's Black Stash fighting this person, and oh, look, now he's fighting somebody else, and like, oh, look, everybody is just doing their own thing, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Wow. That's really exciting. That would be really exciting. So what are the costumes like, Stephanie?
Oh, well, costumes. You're going to really want to come and see the mermaid costumes. Those are the highlight of the costumes. I believe we saw a little bit of a preview of Stashes last night, and it is hilarious.
It's too funny.
Oh gosh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of plays where the first act can be a little bit more realistic, I guess you could say, but then it segues into this kind of phantasmical, whimsical second act that's really fun to play with.
Yes, I understand Tinkerbell is something else.
A yellow bird?
Yeah, okay.
You get to find out about the origin of Tinkerbell.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, Peter and the Starcatcher will be at the Albany Civic Theater December 1st through 16th. You can get tickets for it at albanycivic.org. And thank you for being on Theater Talk, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Stay with us as Anne and I are joined by Jessica Peterson, Ryan Carty, and Stephen Munshaw from Enlightened Theatrics to talk about James and the Giant Peach, that opens December 8th and runs through the 17th at the Grand Theater in downtown Salem. More Theater Talk is headed your way in just a moment.
We're talking today with Jessica Peterson, Executive Director of Enlightened Theatrics, and Stephen Munshaw, who is the director of James and the Giant Peach, and Ryan Carty, who is an actor in the production. Welcome to Theater Talk, you guys.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
I've been reading the plot of this play, and it's just fascinating. What drew you to this play?
So we had a conversation, the season selection committee and myself, and this was on the short list of our musical selection. And honestly, I was getting the word from our board and our committee about what they loved about the show. We try to do our mixed productions where we have either a female presenting or male presenting child lead. And we had just got done doing Annie before. We had Seussical also, and we just really wanted to try something different. And we were really excited about what this would bring to Salem.
This is very different. This is kind of well, and Annie, there's a little bit of darkness, but this is a really exciting production. How are you staging it?
Well, I think we put our heads together and we actually are doing a bit of a different take on it, but it's being staged really brilliantly. We're using some shadow backgrounds to kind of create that spooky feeling, and we were testing that, and it's going to be fantastic. That side of things. So we're kind of doing a mix. If you've ever seen the movie, it's part animation, claymatronics, as well as live acting, and so we took that concept and have created two very different worlds. One is quite dark, one is quite spooky and mysterious, and the other one is bright and colorful and full of fun and life, and so it's staged to reflect the movie a little bit, but it's going to have its own very, very unique presentation.
That's wonderful.
Stephen, can you give us just a brief description of the plot of James and the Giant Peach?
You know, what's interesting is that there's a lot of people that grew up with the book. And I've talked to several people that said, this is one of my favorite books that I've ever read from my childhood. And now it became a movie and then a Broadway musical. The plot is about a little boy who is adopted by two very evil aunts, and they have nothing good in store for him, and are insect killers of all things. And so James helps to save some of the insects that mysteriously have grown into very large insects, along with a very big peach outside of their English home. James escapes inside of the peach from the evil ants, along with these overgrown insects, and they are off on a very big and fun adventure across the Atlantic Ocean to New York City. So it's wild and wonderful, and Ryan plays Ladalord, and he's got some spendiferous, or what are some of the adjectives that you use, Ryan?
Remarculous, splendiferous, magical trips. No, it's really neat, Ed and Ann, and of course during this entire trip, of course, there are varying levels of both comedy and tragedy befalling James and his companions, and then he's also being chased by these two aunts who have identified, of course. So this play was written, or the book, I guess the play was based on, was written in 1961. And so it reflects back on an earlier time when audiences, when crowds were gathering to see spectacles, right? And so when James, through this magical event, when he discovers this giant peach, and then the ants are tuned into it, they realize they're onto a moneymaker. And that crowds everywhere will want to see, sort of like this old, Barnum and Bailey type of spectacle. Let's go see, the bearded woman or whatever. But no, we've got this world's largest peach. And so the ants, when James takes off with this peach, they are absolutely fired up and out to get it. So then you've got this wonderful plot mechanism of a chase scene, traveling all the way from London over to, or England over to New York. And so it really lends a fun element to the play and to the characters and to the narrative as the audience gets to make that journey with them.
Can you guys tell me about the cast? Who's playing those ants?
So we have Diane Slamp, who was one of our performers. I know you both know who Diane is, from Albany. She was in Dear Elizabeth with us. She's playing Spiker. And then Natalie Reed Holbrook. was I think Ed, you've worked with her, correct? She was just with Pentacle in their last production. She's new to the area, and when she came out and auditioned, I remember, I think I said something to Stephen, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm always so excited when new people come into a space. And she was recommended by another actor of ours who's playing one of our insects, who said, you need to come out and audition. And I was so happy that she did, because they are absolutely nailing it. And, this is one of our mixed productions. So we have 6 kid actors, including James, 7. And there's 5 of them that will be the puppet insects that appear in the first act before they turn into the human-sized insects. And so there is an element of puppetry in this, that we have a new prop designer who has created these puppets to live out that kind of cartoon crossover that Stephen was talking about. And so I think that's a fun element also, because it's the kids that we do have been in a few 1 or 2 of our productions, and they get to learn a new element, which I think is also something that we aspire to, right? Is to continue to educate our young actors in different ways. And so we just did our designer run last night, actually. This was the first time we all got to see it on his feet. And I've been in the office in and out, bopping my head and listening, but then also trying to focus on other things. And we were all so impressed. And I think we all walked away just feeling so encouraged and excited to see every element come to fruition with all of our design elements. So,
well, it's a huge project. Stephen, you have to draw all these elements together. How are you doing that?
Well, it's interesting because it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I haven't done a kids production for, a long time, whereas it really focuses around a child. Of course, I did A Christmas Story a few years ago at the Elsinore, and that was a wonderful production using several kids.
Yes, it was.
But this is a very kind of different show. But the material is so fantastic. It was written, the musical was written by Pasek and Paul, and of course, they wrote Dear Evan Hansen and La La Land, and they're just brilliant writers. And so when you have great material like that, and working with choreographer Christopher Dean that I've worked with in the past, well, Christopher's fantastic. And so he's really pulling a lot of these elements because it's so peppered with so much music throughout the show. And so then you mix in Christopher's brilliant choreography, and it really comes to life. It really is going to be a wonderful show.
Stephen, what are the main themes or messages that you want to convey through this show?
Well, I think some of the messages are inherent with the script and the storyline, but the overall, I believe the arching message is family is what you make it. And here's an unlikely group of people that come together, and at the very end becomes a family for James. That's just the most unusual group of people, and yet so loving and caring. And family works through all of the dynamics of conflict and joy and all of the elements that we engage with on a regular basis with our own family, and frustrations and encouragement. All of those elements come out throughout the show. And so I think it's a really very touching and moving script. I think there's going to maybe even be a few tears along the way. Don't you think, Ryan?
Oh, it's really a touching play. And there are some really, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, there's, elements of comedy and tragedy that follow James and his friends across the Atlantic on their journey. And yeah, I think that it's a story that pulls audiences in, that really gets them to care about these individuals and not just as individuals, but as a group, as they do grow. There are certainly themes of family that you mentioned, Stephen, and then, the thing is that the cast, getting back to them, this, really beyond the aunts, who are fantastic. I mean, both Natalie and Diane are just, boy, lights out on stage, off stage. Have been just a real treat to work with. The entire cast is fantastic. And I think audiences are really going to fall in love with some of these characters, not just because of the writing, which is very strong and compelling, but because the individuals bringing these characters to life are so talented, and audiences are just really going to be drawn to those characters through the characterization these actors are bringing. It's going to be a treat for Salem audiences.
Tell me about a memorable moment or a favorite scene from the play that you really enjoy performing.
Oh gosh, well, Ed, I mean, uh, I could probably talk about every scene. There's one in particular though that I think it's a fun piece. It's a musical number. It's called "Shake It Up." It's a really neat song. It's kind of my character. I play Ladalord, who's this sort of he's the narrator of the play. He's also the instigator, sort of a magical being. He's got some sort of magic prowess, and he's definitely an instigator to James, sort of introduces James to the idea of magic and gives him the elements necessary to spur forward this adventure. So in this scene early on in Act One, James and Ladalord are engaging. They've met for the first time, and Ladalord introduces this magic, and then he's showing James how to put it together. And so there's this piece that is beautifully written, wonderful song called "Shake It Up." And Christopher Dean, who is just a top notch. He's worked in New York. He's worked in Miami. He's just worked all over the place, and somehow fell into Stephen's very able hands, and has worked on a number of shows with Stephen. And so he's doing the choreography for this show, and he has choreographed a number of really, really solid numbers. But in "Shake It Up," he puts the audience to work. I feel like I'm doing it's like jazzercise, some sort of intense cardio every time I get up there. But it's going to be, I mean, it's already fantastic. And between just an incredibly well-written musical number and the choreography that Christopher has presented the cast, and then the cast's willingness to just jump in and own it, to work not only during rehearsals but work outside of hours. I mean, it's going to be a fun piece that the audience is going to, I think they're going to have that song in their heads after the show, and they're going to be remembering, wow, that stage was just lit up with all of these actors bringing it. That's a song that really allows the actors to get in and show off what they can bring in, sort of like the triple threat, right? Acting, singing, and dancing.
Wow, I can hardly wait.
I think also a shout out to Coleman Caspear. He is our little James, and oh my goodness, this kid is fantastic. He's got a great voice. He's going to put it over the fence every night. He's got a great range. He's got great acting abilities, and he's come through the CET program. But like Enlightened has really done a great job in developing child actors, and really I feel like that's Jessica's done a fantastic job of really kind of focusing on the educational component, and I think there's a lot of eyes on the theater because of that.
Ann and Ed, I got to tell you, this speaking of the actors, and Stephen brought up Coleman, and Coleman's been just a pleasure to work with, very easy to work with. I've been on Salem stages, for a couple of decades now, and had the opportunity to work with a lot of pros, and I've really been fortunate to have been able to work in this production. And that's in no small part due to, right, it's a mixed cast. There are adult actors, there are children actors, and really the children that Jessica, the Stephen, and the rest of the team identified and cast out of what was a really strong audition pool, have really brought a high level of quality and engagement to the production. It kind of starts at the top with Coleman. He plays James, and your audiences, if they've been to any children's educational theater productions, they've seen, quite frankly, a lot of these actors in those shows. If any of your audiences went to see Seussical back in Enlightened, they saw Taylor Biggs, Sage Gonzalez, they saw Emily Irvin, Sebi Morales. They saw, those are all CET actors as well. If your audiences saw, and I know a lot of them did, saw Shrek the Musical, they saw Finn Cardi in that. So these are children actors who, this is not just like kind of going to be a fun thing. I mean, it is fun and it's a good learning experience, but they're at their young
they're
ages,
little
they're
professionals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they're
it.
bringing a high level, really a high
Mhm.
level, and it's sort of raising the bar even for me. I mean, I dance a couple of numbers with Emily Irvin, who's an 8th grader over at Howard Street Charter School, and I tell Emily almost every night, my gosh, I am fortunate because you are like bringing me along on this thing, and
Yeah.
and it's no lie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
Wow.
speaking of challenges, Stephen, were there any challenges along the way that really spurred your creativity in staging this show? What are some of the hurdles that you jumped?
I think that the Grand Theater has its own set of challenges. It doesn't have huge wing spaces, we don't have a fly system. And so it was really trying to maximize the space of the Grand Theater. And it's got so many phenomenal qualities. But we do have to kind of relook at, okay, well, what do we do within, the staging? And I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing is that we're rehearsing not in the theater, we're rehearsing in another space that has a limited footprint. And so it's going to be interesting to see the rehearsal process now translate to the stage, and being able to spread out a little bit more. But I think, just kind of walking through some of those. I mean, that's every production. You have the limitations of the rehearsal process, and then you translate it to the stage, and then you have to do blocking and spacing, and stretch the whole thing out. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to do a really good tribute to the Grand Theater. I think it'll be a perfect show for that space, and what we're doing with it will be very, very pleasing for the audience.
So you don't have any fly space in the theater?
No, we do not.
Wow, that makes very creative decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's space above there. Of course, you hide the electrics and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And they've done some incredibly creative things over the years. But yeah, you can't fly any sets, and there's no mid curtain, so you have
Yeah.
one curtain that closes. So, those are things that you just have to incorporate into how does this show come to fruition, and how do we do the best job of this show. And I think that we're doing a pretty good job there.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate to I bring in the professionals, the people who know exactly what things need to look like in a space like that, right? We have a technical director who I know through his job at the Crack Center. He actually works with my dad, and when I took over, my dad goes, I think I met someone who used to be a TD at the Grand, but I don't know. My dad doesn't do much theater stuff. But he's like, I think he knows Maduri's, and we sat down for coffee, and he's like, yeah, I was there for 1950s Radio Hour and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, what are you doing now? What's going on? Let's be friends. Can you come and teach me what needs to happen in here? And he's been great because he's familiar with the space. And because of that, he knows the capacity, right? So he's been able to communicate what has been done before, what can be done. But then also, I think to Stephen's point, our team has so much depth that we have been trying to figure out different ways to imagine this project with the shadow puppets and the artistry behind that. So I'm just fortunate to be able to bring in some really talented professionals who can bring all of these pieces together.
That's wonderful. And the puppets sound really intriguing.
It's going to be really fun. Our prop designer, it's her first time doing puppetry. And so definitely when we talk about being stretched, I would say every designer is being stretched in this process. But I'm a big believer that we all have ability to learn and grow. And that, I think, is a part of the fun, is just seeing what our capacity is, what we can do when we put our minds together and challenge each other. It's just been last night, I think for me, as I watched it and we sit in these production meetings, we think about what it's going to look like. I was just like, yep, this is the cast, this is the team, and it's going to be a ton of fun.
You're absolutely right. The challenges that come with any production, whether it's the creative team or the cast and crew, it really brings opportunities for growth and change and creativity. And you see that all the time in theater.
Yeah, and Ed, speaking of those puppets, this is going to be really fun. And we as a cast and production team, we haven't seen the final product yet. We've been working with some prototypes. And they've been, I mean, even the prototypes are really, really fun to work with. They're fun to see on stage. And one of the things that's neat that the audience is going to get to see, and that the designers are going to get to collaborate on, is these puppets that are operated by some of our younger actors. Those puppets, those insects, they then grow through this magic that affects the peach, and they turn into full-blown characters that are acted by some of our older actors. And so the interplay then between our properties master, who is going to be building these really, really well-functioning, elaborate puppets, and then our costume designer, who's going to be able to bring these puppets into real life, is going to be really fun to see. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about, as the production kind of gears up toward getting into the grand and getting into the space, is seeing what the interplay is between those two dynamics.
I'm thrilled to be a part of this team. I think that there's some great elements. I think it's going to be a very strong production. Tickets are selling like crazy. I don't know if they might be gone really quick here. So if anybody wants to come see the show, you better jump on it.
The show is James and the Giant Peach at Enlightened Theatrics. It plays at Salem's Historic Grand Theater December 8th through the 17th. Evening shows are at 7:30 and matinees are at 2 o'clock. You can get your tickets at enlightenedtheatrics.org. This musical is one of the best, based on the book James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. This show is for all ages. It's going to be a real entertainer, folks, so go see it. Thank you so much for joining us, Director Stephen Munshaw and actor Ryan Carty, and Enlightened Theatrics Executive Director Jessica Peterson. Thank you so much for joining us on Theater Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, friends.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, guys.
It's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program. Thank you for joining us. Next week at 9 a.m., you can tune in to Talking About Art with Joel Zack. KMUZ Theater Talk is a proud member of the Mid-Valley Theater Network.
KMUZ Theater Talk airs at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month at 100.7 and 88.5 FM, and on your favorite radio app or on demand at kmuz.org. You can also listen to our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast anytime on your PC, mobile device, smart speaker, or in your car, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ed and I will return December 1st with a brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program. Meanwhile, check out our Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley.
If you haven't yet joined in to support Theater Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs, head on over to kmuz.org right now and click the Contribute button at the top of the page. And thanks. Until next time, we'll see you in the front row.